Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to Hans Von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation, the country's premier conservative think tank. And we're going to spend some time. We talked a little bit about what's happening with lawlessness from government, which is a huge problem in the last segment. We're going to talk specifically about an issue that the Obama administration is, Justice Department is going to challenge states' voting laws. Welcome back, Hans. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what happened was the Supreme Court, at the end of its term, threw out a small portion of the Voting Rights Act. This is a provision that was passed back in 1965 as a temporary measure, and it required just a small number of states, Texas one of them, to get the pre-approval of the federal government before they could make any changes in their voting laws. The Supreme Court threw it out because they said, look, this is based on 40-year-old data. And the Congress had never updated it, and today it is not 1965.
Right.
So what the Holder Justice Department has said is, well, we want to bring Texas and a number of other states back underneath this requirement to get all their stuff pre-approved, which, look, that's an extraordinary intrusion into state sovereignty.
Absolutely.
And to do it, they have filed a lawsuit in Texas, for example, under a remaining provision of the Voting Rights Act. It's called Section 3, and that law basically provides that if you can go to court and prove that a particular jurisdiction, in this case Texas, is engaging in intentional racial discrimination, that they're going to keep doing it unless they are supervised, well, then a judge can issue an order saying that Texas is going to have to get pre-approval for its voting changes for some period of time. Holder has asked for 10 years. I don't know whether he's got the evidence to show that Texas ought to be put under that. I do know they filed down in San Antonio, which is a very liberal jurisdiction, and he's already gotten some very liberal Democratic judges assigned to the case.
Yeah, isn't it ironic that they would, try to make this case in the same block, of lawsuits that included the lawsuit of Abigail Fisher, who sued the University of Texas. She's a white girl, by the way, because she was discriminated against. It's kind of funny that, that they think that somehow the state of Texas is among those five, or really any of those five states are somehow locked in the 60s when this young lady is suing as a white woman who is being discriminated against, in her opinion. And the court somewhat favored her perspective.
Yeah, but that shows the complete hypocrisy of this administration.
Yeah.
Because remember, in that Fisher case, in fact, the Holder Justice Department, they filed a brief with the U.S. Supreme Court basically saying that the University of Texas ought to be able to discriminate on the basis of race in their college admissions, and yet now they're claiming that Texas state government is so racist when it comes to voting changes that they shouldn't be allowed to operate on their own. What he's trying to do is he's against voter ID, and this is intended to stop things like voter ID.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And unbelievable that we live in a free society, but people don't think it's important enough for us to have an ID to vote. And I think most of the states that are requiring it are making it next to free to get your ID. So all the excuses for doing it really comes down to not being motivated enough to go do it. In my opinion, if you're not motivated enough to get an ID, you're not sensible enough to vote.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, too, in May, the Census Bureau put out its report that it always puts out on the November election. Listen, black voters voted at higher rates than white voters in the November 2012 election by more than 2 percentage points. And in many states, blacks voted at higher rates, particularly in some of these states that used to be covered under Section 5.
Unbelievable. Hans Von Spakovsky's with the Heritage Foundation talking about what's going on here with this action by the Justice Department. So what do you see happening next? Kind of etch out a chronology for me.
Well, in fact, there was a report this week that Holder went to the Justice Department, went to the White House to meet with the president specifically to discuss the Voting Rights Act and what he should be doing. And the other person that was there was the new Labor Secretary, Thomas Perez, who used to head the Civil Rights Division. So I think they're going to launch a whole series of lawsuits. I think their next target is going to be North Carolina. Why? Because the North Carolina state legislature is in the process of passing a photo ID law.
Right. And I believe this is going to happen more and more around the country, don't you?
Yeah, no, I think it is, and that's what the lawyers, the taxpayers pay for, are going to be busy doing, trying to stop measures that are intended to improve the integrity of the election process.
We have got to improve the integrity of elections. If the right to vote is so important that people would die for it, then it's so important that we have one that's based on reality, truth, and integrity. I don't think the people in the civil rights movement in the 1960s who literally died for the right to vote wanted it to really become one where anyone, regardless of their citizenship, could vote. That's just asinine.
Oh, listen, I agree, and they would just be if you had a time warp and you could bring those folks forward to today, they just would be astonished at the idea that somehow having to produce a photo ID is going to keep people out of the polls. Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, again, it's Hans Von Spakovsky. He's with the Heritage Foundation. It'll be interesting to see how the various, I guess it will be the attorney generals that they'll be dealing with, or who will they be dealing with in the various states?
Yes. Greg Abbott is the attorney general of Texas, and he's already said that he intends to put up a fight, and the Texas officials they're being pretty fierce about this, saying that they're willing to fight the Holder Justice Department, and more power to them for doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting because our side has had a hard time finding heroes. Attorney generals, Republican attorney generals throughout the country, those guys have been rock stars since Barack Obama has become president. Every state that has a Republican attorney general, the things that they have done to really, really tie this administration up has been phenomenal. And then I would say secondarily, some of the great governors we have. That is where I think our next best presidential candidate will come from is some of these governors. But thanks so much, Hans, for being with us.
Sure, happy to do it.
I want to encourage you to check out heritage.org. And I am Kevin Price. Don't forget you can check out great information like this interview over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook. Follow it on Twitter.